What's your position on a living wage ordinance in Manhattan?
I've worked construction most of my life, and like when I was working in an Olive Garden there for 2.5 months a year ago. And we have these laborers that they hire through express employment, and the labor gets about $9 an hour. But they also get health care opportunities and unemployment insurance and all these other. The employer gets charged like $16 an hour for that labor that's getting $9 an hour, plus all those benefits. So counting the benefits, the laborers that are from the labor pool are getting their $12 an hour, including the benefits. So I'm basically opposed to this. I was in the Carpenters Union for a few years, and I had like 25 years experience, lead carpenter, framing in houses for DNR Construction and Ron Hill and Mike Hill. And when a new journeyman carpenter come there, he got paid the same exact wages that I did. So if you're trying to equalize all the wages, that's called socialism. And I'm opposed to that. You know, if I get paid the same wages as somebody that's only got 3 years experience and I got 25 years experience, I don't think that's right.
I'm opposed to city government trying to get in and dictate wages to private companies, as well as trying to dictate the benefits. I think it's a very bad idea. I think it would be terrible for economic development. Also, it would get the city involved in trying to review private companies' wage structures, benefit structures, people appealing to the city if they don't like their benefits or wages or think that they're not being paid according to whatever guidelines the city is trying to put in. Also, I think they're discriminatory because your less experienced and your less skilled workforce is the first one not to get jobs, because if you're going to pay 12, you're going to go for the most experienced and your most skilled people. You also tend to want to mechanize things versus use people. I ran a facility in Arizona where we paid a very low wage, and we had a very managed shipping department. I had a new boss that was visiting. He said, well, we're going to automate this and save a fortune. Then when I told him my wage rate, he said, no, we're not going to save anything. Had the wage rate been higher, I'd have hired a company, paid some very well-paid people to design the system, hired some maintenance staff, and I'd have put in that system, and I would have laid off a lot of those low-wage workers. I would have saved, it would still cost me more to do business, but not as much as trying to comply with something like a living wage ordinance.
To me, the living wage ordinance is just not business friendly. It goes back to the other question. We already have a minimum wage. Now, I looked at the petition and studied it, and you can't say the intent is noble. In other words, everyone needs to be paid as much as possible. And I don't see why we don't already have a mechanism for this. The intention of that ordinance was to be sure that economic development dollars given to new businesses that come in as incentives, that they pay what's called a living wage. So my thought on that is just make the criterion for selection include looking at wages, because that should be a very important factor in selecting a business to come in here. But do not dictate to them in any fashion. You know, things like what they have to pay, vacation. And when you read in details in there, that petition included things like health benefits. It included vacation, and it made them have to be equal to what the City of Manhattan government currently does, which is a pretty good package. So generally, let's stick with we already have a minimum wage. That should be our standard. If we want to have criterion for looking at bringing in new businesses and use that, we meet the intent of that petition without causing another series of regulations, which to me is not business friendly.
I'm not in favor of the living wage ordinance, but the intent is to grow the actual wage base of our community at the lowest level. The city, along with the chamber, had appointed at various different times groups of business people that study economic development for our community. And most recently, we've adopted a model for economic development for incentives that has a point system. And one of the points, one of the areas of criterion is the base wage structure that allows a new business coming in to receive incentive from the city. And if they don't hit some of those targets, then they don't get incentives. And I've been on a couple of panels for businesses looking to come in, and that creates some heartburn. But that's one of the ways that we can help to bring up the base level of wages. We have a huge number of students that are in our wage-based population that are working part-time jobs and things that help keep that suppressed. But if we target the proper companies, it's my belief that the market will take care of itself by bringing companies in that bring higher-paying wage jobs, and that will in itself begin to bring, through competition, the wage level up.
In 1905, Henry Ford was defiantly asked by other capitalists why he was paying his laborers in his car manufacturing $5 a day, which at that time was beyond the living wage. That was a high wage. And Henry Ford said, because I want them to be able to buy my cars. It's good for the economy. Now, if the city is providing a contract for a construction company for millions of dollars, then I think the city, it's taxpayer money, I think the city can also say, you need to hire professional people because we want this job done right. And if you're paying professional people, for goodness sakes, it ought to be what is established as a living wage. And that living wage, by the way, is extremely low. Not very many of us could survive, really, on what is called a living wage. It's really a minimum wage. So if the city is giving out the money, the city has the right, taxpayer money, to say, you hire professional people.